Let's say you've gone out there, you completed your hunt, and you're very happy. You've got an animal that you chose. You have an animal that is the representation of your lofty goal, and you're extremely pleased. It's bigger than anything you've ever shot before, or it's extremely unique, and you're super happy with it. Well, then you probably want to find a taxidermist to get that thing preserved. You want to preserve the memory. Now, there's several different variations that you can use here, and you can use what's called a Euro mount and just get the skull and the antlers or the horns or whatever done. Another way is to do some sort of a body mount, like you can mount the head or maybe a shoulder mount, or maybe you'd like to do a full body mount if you've got the room for it, or if you've got a smaller animal that you'd like to get full body mounted. Either way, you're going to need to find a quality taxidermist that you can trust to do a good job and is going to perform the work in a timely and cost-effective manner, and that is also going to preserve the animal properly so that the mount doesn't fall apart over time. Bad taxidermy work is pretty common. It's very difficult to find a good taxidermist that you can trust to do this work for you. So let's go visit a friend of mine. He's a taxidermist here locally named Jeff Johnson, and Jeff is my taxidermist of choice.
If you look at a deer's nose, they're not solid black, so they'll be darker on top, and they transition into more of a gray with like a little pink coming through at the bottom or red. Tear ducts are another thing. Mostly closed. They're mostly closed unless it's in the rut, then they'll open up. But just the shape of the eye, they're higher up here, lower in the back. Then you have your muscle detail on your ears. You have a muscle down here and then a muscle up here. Plus another one running through the back. Like your whitetails, you have patterns, your deer. Yeah, that's kind of the detail work. Your brisket, you gotta make sure your brisket's lined up. On pronghorn antelope, they have a gland. You want to make sure you put the gland in. And then they have some neat hair patterns that they have also. Lots of colors. Make sure you get them right in the right position. Then your deer has the big Roman nose. It was thicker, so like when you brought it in, it was thicker in here. Plus it had a big Roman nose you can see from the side. So that all gets added on. I took notes of that. So you add that thickness into that deer there. Older, bigger deer have wider foreheads too. So you got to take that into consideration. The whitetails will get it too, get a Roman nose, but mostly it's the mule deer have that feature. You got the patch underneath. Your white patch, you kind of want to get them evened up. And then biggest thing is you want to test fit all the time. You want to make sure this all fits correct. You don't get the antlers too far forward, too far back, so you're stretching things out. You want to keep everything nice and clean, edges good. So it's a lot of test fitting beforehand that you need to do. Not just throw the antlers on and the cape on. I think you're going to go. You have to test fit, especially with cats. Your mammals like the coyotes, that's a lot of test fitting. Because if you get an early season deer with short hair, you can show more muscle. Will show up versus the long-haired, so you will see kind of some veins. Just once this dries out, you'll see veins in the face. Your muscle detail, once I put that in, will show up. Will show up more too versus a rutted up South Dakota deer. Like coyotes, you want the face, you want the hair like fluffed out. You don't want it matted down like a wet dog. You want it to be fluffed out like a normal coyote out there. And then you got to watch the hair patterns. Coyotes, bobcats, mountain lions especially have patterns, hair patterns. So you got to get those right. Shapes of the ears. Paw work is, gotta watch that too. That's not always that's very difficult on a mammal. But yeah, it's mostly just look at reference photos, look at live specimens if you can, and watch them. Might have a deer form upstairs, but yeah, they're just taking off the specimen. A mold is all it is, a mold. So
how do you keep the size correct? You say the position of everything, the position of the antlers. Like, how do you make sure the customer gets what their deer looks like?
So you take measurements before I cape it out. So I'll take measurements from, so if you bring a deer in, I take from the corner of the eye to the nose, then I take measurements off the antlers. And then you take a measurement in here too, also to get the right measurements down. Then to get the form correct, I go with the same eye to nose measurement and then multiple neck measurements also on to get the right form for that customer. And take reference photos like your trophy deer. I took pictures of the nose so that way I knew how much to build up and add on. So, because you got it to me fairly quick, that helps too. Right away, I can take videos or pictures. So that's basically how I get it to fit right, and then also test fit it to mount before you mount it up too. Never hurts to test it multiple times to get the look right.
What are the big things for the customer to do before they bring you the deer or the animal to make sure that everything's going to go well for you?
Best thing would be to, take care of the critter in the field, get it to cool off. It is probably very important to, if you want to have it mounted or not sure, to get it to the taxidermist as quickly as possible, so that way he can cape it out and get everything to cool off, because all this muscle and body holds heat in, which causes bacteria, then the hair to fall out if you leave it on too long. But the main thing is take care of your critter, get it hanging up, and get it to your taxidermist as quick as possible. Or you could cut down the back too and peel it away, and keep it in a cool spot also till you can get it to the taxidermist. It's not always handy to get there, especially when you're in the back country.
So keep it cool. Any recommendations as far as how they go about field dressing the animal in preparation for taxidermy?
For on big game deer, just don't cut up the brisket. Stay away from there. You can always cut up the back of the head towards the ears and peel away there. Try not drag them so much either. That causes hair to fall out or will break off the hairs too, causing some weird spots in the hides. Put some ice onto it, keep it cool. Some dry ice would work too. Be careful with that though. That can cause damage to your skin plus the animal's hide.
What's a big enough barrier to keep between the dry ice and the actual fur or the actual animal itself? Like, is it a piece of cardboard, or do they need to use something thicker like a blanket or something?
Oh, a blanket could work, yeah. Just plastic bags too. I've had guys ship stuff just in dry ice was packed in a plastic garbage bag, and that was fine too. Or an old sheet. Sheet works too. You don't want it to get too close. So
Basically, no direct
contact. Yeah, no direct contact. And you should be fine. Make sure you keep the hair out and the skin side in when you roll it up or put it in your bag for transporting. Don't ever have the hide side out, because then it dries out and that causes problems too.
Go inside out.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So once they get it in the cooler, dry ice, then they can ship it to you?
That is the tricky part. You'll have to, being there are rules like for South Dakota to ship into South Dakota, you have to remove all spinal cord tissue and matter due to diseases. So you would have to have the deer completely cased off. So you'll have to either do that yourself or have a local taxidermist do that. You have to go around the eyes, the face, cut the antlers off and remove all spinal cord tissue, brain matter. And then more likely you'll have to dry the hide out, salt it. If you put salt on it, dry it out. Usually that's the best way to go, especially if it's going to take 3-4 days to ship it. A green hide with meat and tissue is not the best way to go to ship it frozen. You can if you have quite a bit of dry ice. Dry ice would be probably the only way to go, and make sure you pay for it to no longer than 3-4 days shipping. You could make a green hide go that way versus the salting and drying out, which would cost a little more and a little more work to it.
So if they have a big enough cooler and it fits the entire animal, and they have dry ice enough for the journey, and it's legal in their state, then they could ship it to you to have it done, but they need to be very cautious about ruining it.
Yeah, if it's just a green hide, not...
When you say green hide, what do you mean by that?
It's just you took it off the animal and nothing's been done with it. It's got the meat still on it. Everything is still fresh, just a raw hide. No preservatives, no salt, no nothing to it. Yes, you'd have to check your rules, and then ship it within, get it to your taxidermist or to me within 3-4 days, I'd say, with dry ice. And dry ice would be the only way to go.
Maximum 3-4 days?
3-4 days, yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Overnight would be better.
Overnight would be better, yes. Or meat, or try and get it to me as quick as possible, yes, is the best route.
And that's including if it's frozen solid with dry ice?
Yes, make sure it's froze solid, dry ice, yep.
As a taxidermist, you see a lot of animals come through, trophy and otherwise. I look around the ring here, and there's some that are quite big. There's some that are not so much. And it's not a requisite that something be huge to get taxidermy work done. Is that right?
No, kids' first deer. Get a lot of those. That's a great way to preserve a memory. The kids' first deer. Also, the last hunt the father and dad did. We get some of them too. The memories. Share that too.
You're in the memory preservation business.
Yep, there's a lot of that. Yes, goes on. Yeah.
So how old do you think the deer that you get in here, like the vast majority of the deer, let's say for whitetail, how old are the whitetail that you get in here usually?
90% of them are young. That's from data. That's been 3 years of collecting data off of teeth. A lot of the deer around here shot are young. They look very mature, big necks, wide foreheads, but they seem to get shot when they're young. They got good genetics around here.
And when you say off the teeth, explain how this works. How do you tell the age by the time it gets to you? How do you know how old it is?
So when they come to me, it's just a guessing game until we remove the front 2 teeth on the bottom, and then we send them into a lab, and then they will split those teeth and count the growth rings, and that tells us how old that deer is.
And how accurate is that science when they do that? Can it be trusted?
Yes, it can be trusted. Yes, they are the leading. It's the Madsen lab out in Montana. They do absolutely wonderful work. What are they percentages? 90%, 95% accurate within about a half a year.
When you say young, the whitetail that come in here on average, how old are they?
3.5 is the average whitetail buck shot, and they could be 160 plus inches. That would be the average for them.
160. I mean, does that make Boone and Crockett buck?
No. I think it makes minimum. That's gross score too. I don't usually mess around with net score a whole lot. So most of the deer that come in here don't make Boone and Crockett. No.
So the bulk of the deer that come in here are 3.5 years old or younger.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I got a non-typical in here that's 2.5. Got third main beam. Yeah, he's a 2.5-year-old deer. Had one of the biggest necks out of all the deer last year brought in here.
How would you compare the size of a 4.5 or 5.5-year-old deer compared to the typical deer that you see coming in here?
I guess where you notice the difference is forehead and face features. They get to be bigger, blockier. Snouts are a little more wider. They're not narrow and compact so much. They get to be bigger in the head area. And then if you look at the body-wise, the chest area too gets to be thicker, deeper on them. Can be hard to tell because a lot of the younger deer have the same big, full necks as a older one. So,
can an old deer cheat age features through its horns? Can you have an old deer that has really skinny bases and skinny horns and no real mass?
Absolutely, yes. I've had some 6, 7, 8-year-old deer come through here that are just the spindliest horns ever, and they were just done as a European mount, and they aged them, and yeah, they were just an old deer on the decline, going backwards.
Do young deer put on mass like the older ones?
Not necessarily, no. Hardly at all. Usually you've got to get the age on a deer to get the mass, and the nutrition. Nutrition plays a big part into that too. But it takes a lot of age to get to that heavy caliber of a deer. Got to gain that mass. Yes.
So this mule deer that you're standing next to, did you score that?
Yes. So the velvet one here was 180. And then this one up here, the European mount, the heavier guy, scored him at 165. And you can tell, and I got the sheds off of this one, so I know this is an older deer, waiting to get the age back on both of these, but you can tell where he keeps the mass going all the way out to the tips, and he has thicker bases, that this is an older deer for this area.
It looks so much bigger, but it's smaller because it doesn't have the fork length.
It don't have the forks, as this guy up here. He's got the deep forks, and this guy here does not. So he's genetically challenged, but letting him get older, he put on the mass, plus he gained an extra point here. That's kind of typical of deer also. The older they get, the more points they will put on. Not necessarily, but they definitely put the mass on and carry it up through the antlers, through the tines.
So even if they're maybe genetically not awesome, let them go another year or two.
Yes.
Can pay dividends.
Yes, it can pay great dividends letting the deer go another year, because this one here, might have grew extra stuff. You can tell right here, he's got some stuff going on, or they get bladed and thick like that. So he probably would have grew even more extra points next year and got heavier. So, yeah, they can get heavier than this, but this is pretty heavy for a deer out in this country, where he carries it out real well. Nice.
And conversely, the 180 there is genetically superior,
yes,
but probably didn't have the age,
nope,
and therefore is a little skinny.
Yes, yeah, correct. He's definitely got the genetics to go. He's Pope and Young for sure. And he's not
Look at Crockett now. Come on, this is a rifle channel. This is a precision rifle channel.
And as far as Boone and Crockett goes, he's right there, So, yeah, who knows how much he could be a 200-inch deer next year or the year after.
Yeah, I mean, putting on 20 inches in 1 year in this country, that's pretty easy.
Yes, it can do that. Yes, very easily. Yes, he could grow, get some big old pop cans for bases, and yeah, tines could get bigger, longer. Yep. Get wider yet too.
Nobody's got to make a size requirement to get taxidermy done here.
No, you don't have to have nope. Can be anything can be done. So yep, no size requirement.
I hope you guys enjoyed meeting my friend Jeff. He does fantastic taxidermy work. If you guys have some small animals, especially, I know like transporting a deer with the big giant set of horns on top is going to be hard. But the small animals, he really does a fantastic job on the small stuff too. So I have some full body mount stuff that he's working on for me. And that coyote that you saw there, that's mine. Did a fantastic job on that thing. And so if smaller critters can fit inside of a cooler with some dry ice, and that is awesome because you can just chuck the whole thing in there, throw a dry ice down, throw some cardboard on top, put the animal in a bag, throw him in there, and then put dry ice on, put another layer of cardboard, then dry ice on top of it. And folks, you can ship these little small critters in coolers and you'll freeze that thing solid in there on its way to him. So if you have something that you'd like done, get a hold of Jeff, give him a call. And he's happy to do that stuff and does a fantastic job at it. Really appreciate the work he's done for me over the years. It's been really, really fun working with him. Now, this is the last of the 3 videos that I wanted to put out before rifle deer season opened this year, just to help some of you have a little bit of a better time, maybe have some help in judging these animals a little bit better this year. And folks, it is like cold out here, and it's like 28 degrees and wind is blowing. I've got this massive wind chill. We are coming into that particular part of the year in South Dakota that separates the men from the boys, that's for sure. This wind blowing like this, it is just cutting right through my body. Any exposed skin out here, you know, it just gets cold. But you get used to it, and so it looks like we're going to have a pretty nice season this year. You guys probably won't hear from me very much until I get done with deer hunting now. It is something that I take very seriously. I take a tremendous amount of pride in doing correctly, not doing all of the negative things that you saw me disparaging in the videos here this week. But the point is it's a wonderful time to go out there and be with God and to spend some time in His creation. And that's what it really means to me. And being a proper steward of that gift is how I show my gratitude. So selecting animals, spending a lot of time looking at them, knowing what I'm looking at, respecting His creation enough to appreciate it fully, respecting it to educate myself about these animals. But in keeping with that, I had a particular verse that I wanted to share with you guys this week, and that is from Genesis. Now, a lot of you already know Genesis. It's the origin story for mankind. It's how God built us, essentially, and it's how He created the universe. But in keeping with the fact that hunting season is upon us, I'll read to you from Genesis 3, and we'll do verse 20 and 21. Then the man Adam named his wife Eve, because she would be the mother of all who would live. And the Lord God made clothing from animal skins for Adam and his wife. So there you see God Himself using the animals in His creation to clothe the very first humans. Adam and Eve, the first clothing that existed on this planet, was made by God using animal skins. Now, how wonderful is that? To be a hunter and to find scripture that gives you not only biblical justification, but the full support of God Himself in the harvesting of these animals. When I was a kid, you could go out and literally pay for an entire pickup across 1 year of trapping and calling. And coyotes, beaver, fox, rabbits, I mean, all of these creatures, their fur was highly valued. And this is very biblically right and justified, because these animals were put here for us. And there's other scripture that deals with how we are to be the Lord of these animals, how we are supposed to be at the top of all of these animals. And so I thought that fitting to share that verse with you guys on this video. to make sure that you know that it's not just some weird desire that you have to go out and hunt and to be a part of God's creation in this capacity. It is a extraordinarily biblically right thing to do, and we need not try to justify ourselves against those people that are against this, because just as we see here, if you are against clothing yourself with animals, you are against God, because God was the very first to ever take one of these animals and use it to provide clothing for the very first humans. So the example has been set, and it's been set in the very first book of the Bible, as early as we can get on into the beginning of creation. So remember that when you're out here hunting, folks. This is not just some passing fancy that we're participating in. This is something that has been with us since God created us. Now, granted, if we wouldn't have sinned, right, if Eve would have kept herself in line, and if Adam would have refused to partake in the original sin in that capacity, maybe we wouldn't have needed the clothes in the first place. But that's a debate for another time. What I'm saying here is that hunting is just biblical and right. So remember that when you're out in the field this season, and enjoy your time out here. Recognize God's creation and be a proper and right steward, and aim high out here, folks. Aim high and be a proper example in His image. God bless you all, and thank you for watching this message, and I hope you have a wonderful and blessed week and a super successful hunting season.